Today on Global Value Creators, we are thrilled to welcome Sverre Bjerkeli, co-founder and CEO of Protector, an Oslo-based multinational insurance company. After a successful career managing Norway's largest insurer, Sverre and his partner Jostein set out to build Protector in 2004. Since then, Protector's stock, assuming reinvestment of dividends, has appreciated by a staggering 60 times or 27% annually. Sverre believes the group's brightest days are ahead as Protector continues to dominate the Nordics, expand in the UK, and eventually conquer niche Continental European markets. We hope you enjoy Sverre's story. All right, great. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to join us, Sverre. We really appreciate it. It's an honor to have you here. And as I said, we're really excited. So as we like to do, we'd like to start from the beginning. So maybe you could just tell us about your childhood. I understand you're from up north, as you say.
Yeah, thanks a lot for being here and for inviting me, Evan. My father is from up north. My mother is from an island out in the Oslo fjord, and the two of them, they merged, they get together, and they brought up three sons. My background is actually from what you could call a working class family. My father educated after he was kind of grown up to be an engineer, so he took his education. My mother did never. She was probably the smartest of the two, but don't tell my father. So working class environment, and I think that I have a bigger brother who is 2 years older, which I think was kind of very useful because I started to fight him when I was 4, and that never ever ended actually. So to have a bigger brother that you can kind of learn from and compete with has been tremendously important, I think. And today I'm a kind of a business manager on at least some kind of level. Then my working class social democratic background is still there, I guess. And enjoyed what I did, enjoyed school, had easy for things like mathematics and other things, but also the sportsman he grew up very early through, I guess, then competing with my brother. He's 2 years older. I would like to be better, and then you have to fight a lot in order to go there. So pretty enjoyable, I would say, but a lot of fun, but a good challenge with my bigger brother.
That's where I guess the challenger DNA started all the way back then. And then after your childhood, you went to school, and if I'm not wrong, you almost immediately got into the finance and insurance industry. So maybe you could just talk about your schooling and sort of what attracted you to the insurance and finance industry.
Yeah, so after my kind of master degree, then I considered what kind of job to start with. And in Norway at that time, in the mid-80s, it was kind of financial industry, it was oil and gas, or it was IT. And I think that those were the three areas at that time, possibly also today, which is the most interesting areas to start working in. I applied for 4 jobs. I got 3 of them. And I left out the bank. And the insurance company Storebrand was a big company in Norway at that time. And then I had an opportunity to go to Norsk Hydro, the oil and gas production company. My father is an engineer. You have to go to Hydro, but actually I like my future boss better in Storebrand. So I picked him actually and went to Storebrand and haven't really regretted afterwards.
And maybe you could talk about the most important thing you learned there working there before you started Protector. Was there something that stands out about the insurance industry or something along those lines?
I think that my first conversation with one of the big guys in Storebrand, a director, big man, you know, I was a young person. I still remember the conversation with him today because he said, you are well educated, you are young, you are a professional athlete, you are doing sports on a high level, nationally and internationally. So you will do well. You will set a hell of a lot of targets. But what you will find out is that when you are gradually moving towards these kind of targets, you will see that they have disappeared because you have changed them to another set of targets, probably higher or better in future. So it's not about achieving these goals or meeting those targets. It's about the way you walk. Have fun, enjoy life, and make sure that you and your colleagues enjoy yourself when doing what you do. I think it was a tremendously strong piece of advice. And I try to remind myself today and remind the people around me in Protector today. It's about the journey. There are no end stations here, or the end station is not very attractive.
Oh, that's awesome. Absolutely. Maybe then just to start getting into the Protector story, maybe you could tell us how you met Holstein and started the business, I think in 2004.
I met the present chairman Jostein in the late 80s in Storebrand, the market leader in insurance business in Norway. We were kind of working in the same company, and he is around 10 years older than me. So he was in a certain period of time my boss internally in that company. Then we split apart and met together for many years. He was kind of my mentor, you could argue. And then let's say 15 years later or something like that, then he had the idea to start a company. And then we got in touch and he asked me whether I would like to join or not. And after kind of a process, I accepted that kind of situation. And I joined Jostein and a team of 2 or 3 people 2-3 months before we launched the company, January 1st, 2004. So it wasn't really my idea, but I know Jostein from back in the late 80s, and also a couple of the other guys who joined the team entering the market on January 1st, 2004.
No, that's great. And just to take a step back, maybe you could talk about what attracted you, or what was the big idea behind the Nordic insurance market. I know it's quite a bit different in some ways than the insurance markets in the US and Europe. So maybe you could just give a high-level overview about what the attraction was to the Nordic insurance market when you were getting going.
Okay, so the Nordic insurance market is very consolidated. It's potentially one of the most consolidated markets in the world. I would say that since around 2000, meaning the last 20 years, it has been a pretty disciplined market. So the big players in the market, they have decided that we would like to earn money, and we will never ever give away profitability to volume or market share. So very consolidated. It is very profitable and disciplined. And I think that it is also very efficient. This is kind of a low cost ratio in the insurance market in Scandinavia or in the Nordic market. So I would say that Scandinavian market is pretty high quality delivered on services to client in a combination with a low cost ratio in the market. Meaning that if you are good in Scandinavia, you could probably enter the world. Because if you are high quality, high efficiency, low cost ratio in a market which probably have the lowest cost ratio in the world, if you are only the best guy in that class, you can do whatever you like in UK or in the Netherlands or in other markets. I think the reason why it is high quality, low cost is more like because we are pretty small countries. You can't take a niche approach. You can't take a product approach. You have to think client and the totality. And since there are few people, I think that is actually an advantage because you have to get more out of each one. You have to make an efficient kind of value chain. It's a good market to start an insurance business if you can find your way, which is not very easy in a consolidated market in that area. The idea behind Protector as such is that was the market. I think it's possible to go there. And since most of the competitors, they are in all segments, consumer, life, small commercial, all products, medium-sized, large client, broker-based business. They are everywhere. So the idea was that there are not very many really focusing on the broker-based business among the Nordic players. The international players, the AIG and Zurich, etc., they do. But the Nordic home market players, they are everywhere. And since they are everywhere, they are not brilliant in the broker society and the broker business. So let's go do a broker-based strategy, broker-based only, build a value chain, and see whether we can steal their market with higher quality and lower cost and acceptable underwriting quality in that area. So that was kind of the idea. It's possible that I'm making the idea slightly better today than what it actually was. I'm not quite sure. But you tell the story afterwards, don't you? At least until you have read the prospect we made 18 years ago. That's the idea behind the company. And then you can verify here. There were some elements of the idea that didn't turn out too good, and that are kind of things we're not doing today. So what I'm saying now is not everything, but what was kind of, we were successful about that at a later stage when we look back today.
Well, I think that's a great lead into my next question, which was, I guess, what was the biggest challenge? Maybe we can talk about a few of those other things that you didn't just mention. And I was curious if you ever, in those early days, thought that you guys weren't going to make it through one of the storms. Maybe you could just talk about some of those early days and early challenges.
At the early days, I think it's fair to say that we were rather lucky in one way, because we got access to some business in the real estate transactional market, people selling and buying houses and flats. There is kind of an insurance product related to that kind of business area, what we today call change of ownership business in Protector. So we got access to volume, 200 million, 300 million, 400 million annual premium pretty quickly. So we didn't struggle too much actually to get volume on board in the early days. We were lucky. So what we struggled more with was actually to get access to the broker society. New company, few people, little capital, not very solid. Do we have the necessary credibility in order to get access to their medium to large clients or not? So that was kind of a struggle in order to get acceptance from the broker society that we could handle the claims, also the complex one, and that we could be a reliable long-term partner. So that was a slow process. It took time. You had to repeat and repeat and deliver and deliver and deliver and repeat and go to the market and talk and meet and do that. So I would say that was a pretty slow process. It took time. But when we, after 5, 6, 7 years, we had been kind of growing to the first 1 billion in annual premium and decided to go to Sweden, then it's easier because you have a reference list. Aon and Willis and Mars and other brokers, they have a presence in Norway. So when I meet these guys in Sweden, I can say, call your colleagues in Norway and talk to them. We are reliable, we know what we're doing. So the big issue was really to build that kind of credibility. It took time and patience. That was kind of a bit frustrating. It's history now. It was easier to go to Sweden, and then even easier to go to Denmark, and then even easier to go to UK. Because now we are someone today in that area. So I think we struggled a little bit there to get the right people on board. In Norway, we knew the market, no big issue. We could pick good people. In Sweden, we were a bit lucky. In Denmark, we struggled possibly a bit more because our capability to get the right people on board wasn't very strong, possibly from the very early beginning. But then again, moving to UK, we have a name. We picked Manchester as headquarters. that is very attractive for all those people working in the insurance industry in Manchester. Wow, a headquarter in Manchester, that's cool. So the kind of issues we had on the broker society, with the broker society in Norway, it is gradually disappearing through the years. And some challenges outside Norway to get right people on board, it gradually disappears when growing and getting a presence and a name and a brand in the market.
And maybe we could talk, just to turn back a bit to the insurance business. I know that it's in some ways in an industry that's sort of stuck in the past, right? That a lot of insurance contracts were written in the coffee houses of London centuries ago. And really, in some ways, the broker business is still operating somewhat similar to what it was back then. So I guess, why hasn't the industry evolved as much as one might think? And do you worry at some point that even these brokers might start to go away, that it could become all digitized and those folks could be cut out of the transaction?
I think that it's possibly a relevant question. I think that the financial industry have evolved pretty much, both in the banking sector and the insurance sector. However, the broker societies maybe still have a way to go in order to improve their part of the value chain somewhat. But so I think that insurance industry have increased quality and efficiency through the years, and we're pretty good at using IT as supporting value chain development. The broker society in the world is incredibly strong. They have the independent status. The large corporate clients and the medium-sized clients, they need a broker. We see what happens if direct channels dominate these market segments. It is a mess, in my opinion. High prices, sometimes good quality on services delivered, not always. So I think that the broker society have a strong place in the market today. These companies are giants in the world, with tens of thousands of employees or hundreds of thousands of employees. They are listed on any stock exchange, we know, the big ones. And they are growing and taking slowly even more market share. So I think that the broker society has an important role to play. They have to industrialize and kind of develop their quality and efficiency also. But they are pretty good in some markets, not that good in other markets. So I don't think we have a distribution channel issue the next 10, 15, 20 years, not at all. And I think that we together are capable of further developing the joint value chains we have towards our common clients in that area. So we love brokers, you know that. They are our only friends in the market, and we are fully dedicated, and we believe in them, and they will be there for forever, in brackets, forever.
And just for the listeners, just to understand, it's so hard to do because to go direct in this market because it's such a high touch. It's not obviously a simple car insurance contract. Maybe you could just explain why it's required in your view that the broker be there and have that relationship.
I think that the professional advisor, the broker for large corporate clients and for medium-sized corporate clients, they need them. They are good at evaluating risk, finding what kind of need do you really have to release risk on an insurance policy, and who should I pick, and how should I read wordings. For instance, it's kind of impossible to read insurance wordings. Even we feel it's difficult. And the brokers is a specialist to read wordings to see whether the wording of a contract really maps to the needs of the client here. So we think that, yes, AI is interesting and it's developing. But my first AI seminar was in 1988 in Brussels. When Big Blue, IBM, held a European seminar at that time. So I think that, yes, okay, it has developed since 1988, obviously, but there's still a way to go. In consumer sector, that's a different story.
Sure.
But in large commercial and medium, large corporate clients, you need a broker, you need the expertise, you need someone who can play the market, and you need someone that can hold your hand. And the cost you pay to a broker is pretty limited relative to the value of the device in that area. So we feel that kind of distribution strategy will hold for the next decades, and what happens after that, I wouldn't know. Then let's just wait and see. We think we can see around 5 years ahead, probably longer, when it comes to these kind of big questions. So it's nothing to worry about, and we certainly do not.
No, that makes perfect sense. You mentioned a minute ago that you originally started in the change of home ownership business in Norway, and I was curious how you, over the years, evaluate and continue to evaluate going into other obviously lines of insurance, but also other geographies. Maybe you could just talk about sort of your framework for expansion.
Okay. So we discussed that in the board now and then, whether we should go other segments. Should we go small commercial? Should we go consumer sector? Should we go life insurance? I have set up a retail bank. Should we go from insurance to banking? Banks go from banks to insurance. Is it possible to go the other way around? So in my banking background, at least you can think the idea. But the easy answer is that we feel that the strategy we have today is good. It's not brilliant. It's easy. It's very easy. So it is normal insurance products towards medium to large commercial clients sold through brokers, and distribution channel broker. We seek to do that as good as possible, and it need to be competitive prices. And we should deliver the best quality in the market. So if you have a look at the Cottbus 4 Ps, and you can see we have a very simple kind of strategy. And my feedback is, I think today it's fair to say that we will stick to it for the next 10 or 15 years. We will not go to another segment. We will not really develop outside where we are today. We have around 15% market share, give or take, in the broker market in the Nordics. We still could grow somewhat, let's say to 20-25% market share in the Nordic market, where we are today. And then we are an incredibly small partner still in the UK market. We are number 3 in the public sector in the UK, but our growth runway in the UK is very significant for many, many years. So we think that we should stick to present strategy, do not really go to consumer sector like this change of ownership business by accident happened back 17 years ago in that area. So no other new segments, no new areas, stick to what you can, grow somewhat in the Nordics, make sure that the UK business will be twice the size of Nordic accumulated, because that's the difference of the markets. Then go to the Netherlands, and then see where you go elsewhere. And then you have a potential growth runway, which will last for at least the next 10 years, probably longer.
Yeah, working your way across Europe.
Yeah.
You mentioned at the beginning that you have an older brother that sort of made you always want to challenge him, I guess, to a large extent. You mentioned in Protector's DNA that you want to be the challenger, and I was curious how you shaped the culture over the last 16 years. I know that's a tough question to answer in a short amount of time, but and I know you've done a lot of work on it, but if you could summarize, that'd be terrific.
Yeah. So where does our culture arrive from? Where does it come from? And obviously, both myself and others, we have some kind of a sports background, which is important. I competed in my brother, and then I competed in sports. I was a swimmer. I was a table tennis player, and then I was a handball player. I have played the national team of Netherlands. I played other kind of bigger nations. So I think that if you start with believing that you can do anything, you can deliver whatever you like. Don't be afraid of the big insurance companies in the world. When we started 17 years ago, we had 5 people basically no money, no IT systems, no nothing. But we said, okay, we don't give a shit if the name is If or Trygg or Top or Gjensidige or Zürich or AIG. Don't give a shit. Been there, done that, working with these kind of companies. They are fat and lazy, meaning high cost ratio and low quality, even in Scandinavia. So let's go and take them out of the market. So you need an ambition. I think that my sport background is relevant. I played handball against the best players in the world, and I know I can beat them. And why couldn't I do that in an insurance business? So you need high ambition. And then you have to articulate what you are doing. And we started with creating this kind of DNA some 15 years ago, something like that, starting with the challenger. We would like to challenge the big companies, but more important, we would like to challenge ourselves in order to always improve what we're doing. So we are the challenger. It's not a word, it is an important concept in Protector. Then we created a business ID. Then we created 4 targets. We should be cost and quality leader in the world. That should lead to profitable growth. Profitable growth, not only growth, but profitable first. To win business insurance is easy. To lose money is also easy. So cost and quality leadership should lead to profitable growth. And we should take a top 3 position in any market we enter. If we don't believe we can take a top 3 position in public sector UK, we should never ever enter. And today we are. We insure a third of London today. So these kind of 4 targets, they were created 15 years ago. And you who follow our company, you know that we have delivered according to, because it's easy to say, but it's incredibly hard to do. Remember, everything on the growth side is organically. We haven't bought nothing when it comes to buying in volume or companies in that area. And then you define your values, the 4 values of the company. And then suddenly you have a set of articulated words and sentences, which are in total 12, and we call them our DNA. So you have a well-structured set of ideas, from vision statement to business ID to targets to values. That's the DNA of the company. And then you start educating yourself in order to try to understand, what does these words mean? What does high quality mean? If we must define what it is. So you can't say high quality. You must define high quality in claims handling, or in broker services, or in sales, or in administrative functions in that area. You must do it in writing. You must be precise. And then you have to start training your people in order to understand, and then finally do the difficult thing. You have to live what you say. So defining 12 DNA elements, that's a good beginning. If you involve all employees, that's a good start. Then you have to understand, and then you have to live. And in order to build that kind of culture based on that DNA, you need follow-up mechanism. You must never ever surrender. You must repeat and repeat, but you need to build follow-up systems and mechanism in order to make sure that it happens real life. And obviously we have sometimes struggled with getting all people to live the DNA of the company at the same time. It's basically impossible. But when we see that we are losing culture in a corner of the company, we have to be honest and put it up on the table, discuss it, and find out what's wrong and why. And it has always something to do with the DNA of the company, the culture of the company. So, of course, market could be difficult or easy. And it's pretty easy in the Nordic market, but it could be difficult there as well sometimes. But sometimes we create problems ourselves, and we can always find an answer in the DNA of the company. in that area, and then you have to go back and learn and loop and start all over again and see. We had cultural issues in Oslo 2 years ago. We were giving away too low prices without good reasons to the market. When we realized, we understood that we were in not deep shit, but at least in shit. So we have to fix it, change management, educate people, get on track. It takes 2 years in insurance from you understand you have a problem until you have a good result. And today Norway is back on track again. But we created some of these kind of problems ourselves. So I think that the DNA of the company, the 12 statements we have, this is who we are, but it's not easy. And we have to continuously work on it in order to not lose the valuable culture of the company. So do you have another 15 minutes? Then I guess I can continue.
Well, it's a perfect lead-in, I think, to our discussion about maybe your performance management system, which I know you spend a great deal of time thinking about and effort building. So maybe you could talk about how you actually measure the culture with this. I guess, how does it actually work, and why has it been so important to your success?
Yeah, we have kind of 4 times a year, we have a kind of formal meeting with all our employees, and we evaluate all people on values and culture 1, 2, 3, 4 times a year. And we also have kind of a 24/7 available IT system that follow up on targets, because whether you deliver high quality or not, one of the targets in the DNA setup that is possible to measure. How quickly, how quickly do you deliver? How good is your communication? What does client mean? What's the feedback loop from the client? What's the broker opinion? So you can, if you define quality, you can follow up quality, you can measure quality, and you can make an IT system, and it is up and running 24/7 in Protector, so that all people and manager can follow up whether I live quality or not in that area. So we have a formal follow-up system supported by a well-designed IT system. That is pretty important. We have long-term bonus programs linked up to that kind of development. But I think that we can measure a hell of a lot, but it is, to go back to the kind of advice I got in 1984 from my big boss in Storebrand: enjoy life, have fun. We will probably send all employees to Rome when Corona is giving us the opportunity again, because the 2020 results are good, and then we celebrate in Rome together with everybody to enjoy life and have fun together. We are sending the employees of the year to Malaga and Granada next autumn, hopefully, with partners, everything paid, including tax. It costs a hell of a lot of money per employee, but it is kind of showing that we walk the talk. When we say that culture is important, if you deliver according to, we will celebrate and have fun and enjoy life and create an atmosphere based on a well-defined performance thinking. If we perform, you will get something back and have fun together with other people. So the culture in itself is a kind of not very easy to measure or to follow up. But so you have to do a lot of initiatives in order to make people feel that they have a good place to go to when they go to work. And I also think that one other element is pretty important to Protector, because our people are younger and better educated. I guess that we have I'm not quite sure, at least a 75% share of employees have a master degree in something in Protector, which is incredibly high compared with most competitors we do have. So we have young people, they have well educated, they are trained to be a part of a performance culture. And when you meet other people with the same attitude, then you are driving each other to hopefully then kind of new levels. So yes, define the DNA, understand the DNA, live the DNA, follow up through systems and IT support, have fun and enjoy life together with your colleagues. That's the magic formula of delivering long-term profitable growth in a pretty competitive market.
Oh, that's awesome. I guess relatedly, maybe you could tell us about, I know you spent a lot of time building as well, your Protector University. I think you have over 700 modules and I'm assuming obviously that's a big part as well about teaching everyone about the culture of the group.
Yeah, so we have something called Protector University. It's kind of in version 2.0. It's not only e-learning, it is more than that. We are trying to take some inspiration from others out there in the world, whether they are called Harvard or Google or Oxford or something. Probably not the last one, but the two first, I guess. And we are, I'm not saying we are brilliant on educating our own people, but I think we have at least started on a journey called Protector University, which have a tremendous potential. And it is in a situation now where we continue to develop and invest in training and education in our own people. Today, where we have the key people on board in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, UK, at least, because we have critical mass in all countries, we have the key people on board. So what we prefer to do now is to take young, well-educated people on board and train them. And then to invest in their education makes sense to Protector. Not saying we are brilliant, we are good possibly, but our ambition is to be better. So I think that I could tell a story about Protector University today, which is interesting, but I think that story to be told 2 years from now would be much more interesting, because we know we have a lot to do still then on the educating our own people.
We'll look forward to hearing it in 2 years for sure and doing this again. I know that you require all of your employees, I believe, to read Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And I was curious why that book is so important and why do you think everyone has to read it?
Okay, so when I first read the book some 12, 13 years ago or something like that, 14 years ago, I think that's it. My opinion is that it's the best ever written management book in the world. I have read all others books from Jim Collins as well, and many other people who are pretending to have kind of the formula for building a great company or great leadership. But I think this is the best book written ever. It's about disciplined people, disciplined thoughts leads to disciplined actions. And if you can follow that line, the kind of flywheel is moving and is going faster and faster. It's a research study. It's not a guru saying what he means. So it is kind of a more scientific approach towards building a great organization and training. So I think that when I read the book, I understand that, hey, many of these things are familiar to us. We believe in it. We do it. Not everything. And the book was more structured than we. So we spent basically 18 months in the total management team in Protector at that time, making a training exercise going for 18 months, built on the book only in that area. And today it's kind of mandatory reading and a part of educating, especially managers, but to a certain extent also other employees in Protector, in a way of thinking which we kind of believe in. To pick up the book today, to me, is actually interesting because I have a potentially a slightly different perspective on reading different chapters of that book compared with the first time I read it some 10, 15 years ago or something like that. So it's a strong book. We believe in it. And we have obviously also picked some ideas from other books and from academia around the world when we are doing some kind of development initiatives in Protector. It's not really a Bible. We haven't built Protector on the book, but the book fitted Protector, and we learned something from it. So it's the most important book we have in Protector on our agenda always.
Yeah, and it's amazing how powerful that flywheel concept is. I know that Jeff Bezos had Jim Collins come, I guess, in the early days and create their sort of draw out their own flywheel. I was just curious, have you ever designed your own flywheel for Protector along Collins' lines? Or?
Yes, actually, I designed it a little bit earlier than Jim Collins. So my flywheel was built in 1980. When was it? 1986, and it's called the winning wheel. So that my wheel was built earlier, and when I retire, I will write that book. But I'm not quite sure whether I would recommend you to read it. It will not be close to Jim Collins or any of the very good ones, but it could possibly be some interesting elements in that story, because my winning wheel has been introduced to all employees in Protector since I started. All new employees had to go through a 2-hour presentation on winning wheel. What is it all about? And we have stolen, obviously, in Protector a lot from the flywheel and from the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, but we do to a certain extent have our own version of it in Protector as well.
So maybe Collins really got the idea from you, as it turns out. But anyway,
I can't really say that. No, I'm sorry, but at least we have sent some people on his courses, Jim Collins in New York, in order to attend and to meet him and to be inspired by him as well in that area. But I talked to Morten Hansen. Morten Hansen, he wrote a book with Jim Collins a few years later called Great by Choice. So that was Jim Collins and Morten Hansen. And Morten Hansen is a professor in the University of California in Ukla. He is Norwegian. He is educated in the same school I educated in the early 80s. And when I met Morten, the co-author of the follow-up book from that book, I said, I tried to inspire Morten to write a new book based on international studies worldwide. And I suggested that book should be called Rising Stars. And then obviously I had one other motivation by giving him that idea, is that if you write that book, and we talked a little bit about the concept of rising stars in the commercial world, then I said that if you write that book, I'm absolutely sure that I know the name of one company that will be in that book as one of the rising stars in the world, and that is Protector.
Well, hopefully he eventually writes it. Maybe we could turn a little bit to the investment side of the business, because I know that's exciting and also related to another book I understand you hold in high regard. I think over the 16 years or so of the business, you bought back about 20% of the shares outstanding, including large percentages in 2008 and 2018 when you had the great silverfish issue. Maybe you could talk to us about your view on share repurchases and the most important idea you learned from Will Thorndike's book, The Outsiders.
I think that capital allocation is tremendously important, and buyback or pay dividend or allocate capital to high yield or to growing insurance business I think it's half of who we are. So if you are good at capital allocation through many years, I think that it's tremendously important for the value development of Protector. And I had the opportunity to meet Bill Thorndike to dinner in New York 1.5 years ago, and spent some time on a investor forum called St. Angel in New York, where I had a presentation for that people. So I did find his book and him incredibly interesting. And I think that we have been the last 10 years or a bit more possibly, pretty good at capital allocation. We have an ambition to continue to be that. We will tend to say that to set aside enough capital for profitable growth in the insurance business will normally be number one priority. It's very seldom that we will take that down as the number two. But if you think it's hard to grow enough, like it has been for a year or two now, because we have been struggling with some kind of volume issues in the Nordic market, which I hope is kind of behind us now, and it's a part of the history, then obviously there are other opportunities in that area. So we have bought back shares successfully so far, and our allocation in the financial crisis 2008 and also in the COVID-19 crisis now, I think it's kind of examples of a company that believe in what they do and do what they say, and are bold enough in order to move when there are opportunities out there in the market. We tend to say that we do two things, insurance and investments, while many competitors in the Nordic market say insurance and not too much investment. It's kind of risk-free. I don't understand what risk-free is. I don't understand the concept of it, but okay. But we say we do both of them, and we have at least delivered better return on investment. Also, I would say risk-adjusted since we launched the company on the stock exchange 2007, and also after insourcing investment Q4 2014 in that area. It's not really evidence, but it's at least an indication that we know what we're doing when it comes to return on investment, and probably also when it comes to capital allocation in that area. Bill Tornard, great guy. I hope he will join the board in Protector one day. We discussed that with him 1.5 years ago. And now when we have learned that board meetings could take place digitally, then it should be easier than to cross the Atlantic then in that area. So I hope we will see him on the board, if not in April, that at least a year or two from now.
That would be terrific. I was hoping to zero in on the last, I think it was the last week of March. I understand you estimate that you bought back 70% of all bonds. I think Norwegian bonds, correct me if I'm wrong, in the middle of that COVID-19 panic when obviously the bond market was down and all markets were down dramatically. I was curious how you had the courage to do that and what kind of support was required from your colleagues. Obviously, you're not the only one making the decision. So I was hoping to sort of get in the room at that point and sort of understand how that all happened and how you had the courage and boldness to do all of that.
Yeah, I think that first, yes, it's correct that we bought a hell of a lot of high yield in those days in mid-March, probably half the available sales in the Nordic market actually during that kind of 1 week or 10 days period. And I guess it's fair to say that we had prepared for 2 or 3 years in order to meet that kind of opportunity, taking money off the table. So we told in many quarterly investor presentation that taking money off the table, the risk reward is not interesting. Taking money off the table. And then in parallel, we were building up our prospect list on the high yield side in the Nordic market in order to see what kind of companies can we rely on if a certain crisis do arrive, because crises do arrive occasionally, actually. Not Great Depression every time, but it will always be a crisis. So in January 2020, when we had our kind of business review in the investment department, we put in writing that we are ready for the next crisis. And we said basically, we hope it will be there soon. Obviously, we didn't hope for a pandemic situation to create such a crisis. That's a human tragedy. But that led to a financial crisis, which we tend to like, because if you are prepared, it's an opportunity. So we had a very good and strong prospect list. We had capital available. When the crisis was there, the chief investment officer, the analytical team, the bond, the high yield person in charge, the CFO, and myself, we had daily meetings every morning to check insurance risk in this crisis versus investment risk in this crisis versus available capital versus prospect list and opportunities. And then we moved. We didn't ask anybody for permission because we have that kind of authority given by the board. So we know we have the necessary possibility. And we tend to say that if the development is not a sharp V, but a U or even an L, you have to kind of live with it. So you should never, ever put yourself in a situation where you have to do some fire sales on equities in that kind of situation. So we had taken money off the table for a couple of years at least. We had capital available. We had prepared all the hard analytical work in order to have the prospect list. And when the crisis arrived, we were discussing every morning and decided every day what to do in that area. And we started slowly, went aggressively, more aggressively, and then with everything we could. And since it's not like in an insurance company that you can either buy for 1 billion Norwegian kroner in high yield or 1 billion in equities, because they consume incredibly different amount of capital. So you need to consider what to do relative to capital consumption. Because some investors say that, but you could have bought shares because they picked up as well. And then I say, yes, you could, if you had 1 billion, but we couldn't to the same level, because that would have consumed so much capital that we couldn't really do it. So everything we do must be done not only based on your intuitive investor thinking about or your analytical thinking on what's right or wrong. You must add another dimension, which is the capital consumption dimension, which is Solvency II and the European regulation in that area, which is actually a good set of rules. They are not difficult or hard. They are good and well written, in my opinion. But capital consumption is crucial to understand in that area. And the best thing we could do was high yield. And then we went in, and then we have taken today a super profit from that area.
It's quite an amazing story. I know that one of Munger's top, I think, 4 key traits of an investor is the ability to run into a burning house, and it certainly sounds like that's what you're doing in the last week of March. It's pretty amazing. Maybe we could just turn back to the general business, I guess, or the insurance business, or maybe more importantly, the customer. I know that your broker satisfaction in the Nordics and UK are far, far ahead of your competitors, in some cases, orders of magnitude. I was curious why, I guess maybe first, what the secret sauce to sort of pleasing the customer, besides what we've already discussed. And so why also haven't your peers figured out that the customer is king, that pleasing the customer is really all that matters at the end of the day?
I think that they have figured out that many years ago. So I don't think it's a matter of not really understanding what's important in that area. But I think that we have an advantage. We do broker-based business only. We're up against Nordic companies who are doing everything, and they have multiple priority issues, and they have to deal with 16 different distribution channels, and we have one. And they are all market segments, and we are kind of more limited. So I think that our strategy helps us to be focused in that area. So I think also that the quality level in Scandinavian insurance is pretty high, possibly one of the highest qualities delivered to the insurance market in the world. But our ambition is to do better. And I think that define quality. Define what you should deliver to the market, communicate what you should deliver, educate and train your people in order to do follow-up by 24/7 IT systems that can tell you whether you are delivering according to what you promised the market or not. Learn, University 2.0, Protector University, loop, and go again. It's pretty easy. So the recipe is easy. And if you have a DNA that can guide you in the daily work and a culture people would like to challenge, I love being a challenger and challenge my colleagues or my boss or my competitor or myself, that's great. So the real secret, don't tell anyone, it's the DNA of the company. It's the culture of the company. It's so easy. It's so easy, but so hard.
That makes perfect sense. I guess relatedly on IT,
you start crying. I can see you. You start
it's
crying.
true. It was amazing. No, on the IT of the company, I know maybe you estimate 1,000 IT updates or something along those lines. Correct me again if I'm wrong. While competitors only do an update every quarter or something like that. And while you say they have all kinds of things going on, and maybe they know they need to please a competitor, I suspect this is one of the reasons why they're not maybe fully able to. And yet at the same time, you only have 1/3 of the cost ratio, so you're doing it in a far more efficient way. How do you achieve this? Is it just all of what you mentioned, just the culture, or is there something else that's going on? And is it true that is a big impact to the customer experience, the IT part of the business?
That's a good one, and IT is incredibly important. I think to start with the fact that both myself and the chairman of the board in Protector, we have an IT software development background, not only from Norway or from the Nordics, but internationally. So we have been working in the Nordics, in UK. The IT director, the first IT director in Protector, also working in Australia. My chairman in the States. So we have kind of a national and international background, software development in the insurance business. You have to understand what you're doing in IT. If you don't, you are fucked. If you do, you have an opportunity, at least, to deliver something good. And so I think that our personal experience and background, the IT director, the chairman, and myself, is crucial. Then we decide. We build all systems internally. We never, ever buy anything of core insurance system after in the market. Why not? We have been there. It's crap to a high price. Off-shelf product doesn't really exist. So you build all systems yourself. Obviously, it's a huge advantage to start with clean sheets. You don't have any legacy systems. You didn't really build your system in the 70s or in the 80s. And then you spend 20 years to build around a lot of shit around them. So you have the benefit of being young and innocent and starting with modern technology and good architecture in that area. I met Bill Gates a couple of times during the years developing IT systems in his world, and that was very early. In late 80s, where you couldn't use a personal computer, a PC, to anything in the financial industry. You had to have Big Blue. And Bill Gates and Microsoft and Storebrand at that time, and later the company I was running at that time, we kind of agreed that we should challenge the Big Blue lady and the old software around that. So you have to have a background. It's a tremendous benefit not to have legacy and a long history. And then you recruit good people and start building the system, and then you innovate. And we release new versions of the systems every day without people noticing. Obviously, those who ask for something, they will understand they're getting something new. So time to market for innovation is shorter. And we don't have a budget on the IT side. We just, how much do you need and what do you want to do? And then we do it. So budget restriction doesn't exist on the IT, but we are not capable of spending more. So as you said, we have 1/3 of the cost of competitors. We are releasing new systems every day. And time to market is a fraction of competitors. And we only have one distribution channel, not 16. It's easier in that area. So I think that IT is one of the competitive advantages of Protector. And the big competitors of ours, they try to say tell another story. They are wrong. We are right. So big is not beautiful on the IT side. I'm not saying they are stupid or poor or whatever, but they struggle. And we are lean and mean and fast and cheap and high quality. Okay, that's the sales pitch that we struggle in some areas as well. So don't believe everything I say, but the basic story is true. It is.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. I guess the last one on the insurance before we sort of pivot to the future. I know you've been in the UK market for 4 years or so and had a difficult and obviously sad experience with the Grenfell Tower tragedy a few years ago. I was curious what the future of the business is in the UK and how you've gone about exporting the Protector DNA from Norway and the other Nordic countries into Manchester.
If I could do it in other order, start with culture and then go to the DNA, and then go to the future of our business in UK. I think that when Henrik Høie and myself went to London and UK back in 2000 and early 2015, we met a Scandinavian retail bank called Handelsbanken, possibly the only financial institution in the Nordic market that have had some kind of success in the retail banking market or in the financial sector in UK at all. So we met some of the big bosses there in Handelsbanken in UK. And I asked one of the big guys there the question, what is the cultural challenges we have when arriving from Scandinavia and moving to London and UK? And I said, no, Sverre, you are wrong. It's not your cultural challenge. You have to look at it differently. It is your opportunity, because we, good old UK bankers, we love doing retail banking the Handelsbanken way, the Scandinavian way. Fast decision making, local authority, high quality, low cost. Let's just do it. So we are given the opportunity to live a culture which we like and love. So it is not a cultural problem for you as a Scandinavian company, or you have explained your DNA and your business ID to me. And I know for a fact that this is not your problem, it's your opportunity. It's to your benefit. And when Henrik and I arrived back from that trip to UK and London, we were fully convinced that that piece of advice was worth a lot. We trusted that feedback, went back and just said when arriving to UK that we know who we are and what we do. We know the DNA of the company. Now we have to educate our people. And that is obviously a challenge if you recruit senior people from the insurance industry. Maureen and Julia, and today Stuart and Paul and Lee and Matt and the others. Because when you recruit the young people, that's easy. But the old ones that are brought up with English traditions, bureaucracy, lack of decision authority, that is a mess or a hell. So to educate them and to make them believe in it and trust. And so when we say open, we mean open. Don't be afraid. Challenge me. I love it. And then to start doing that, it takes a bit of a time. But when you're there, and we are there today, then it starts moving. And we have a stronger protector culture in Manchester today compared with Oslo. Wow. And that makes me sure that that we are on our track to deliver profitable growth in UK. We are moving slightly slower than compared with size of the market and compared with what we could have seen. But I think it's good that we are disciplined in UK. We have passed the first billion in annual premium. It took 4.5 years or something like that. The second billion will arrive a lot faster. Why wouldn't it? Today we have, I'm not quite sure, 60 people on board or something like that. 4.5 years ago, we had a handful. And the bizarre situation is that Grenfell Tower also to a certain extent have kind of built the brand of Protector, because according to the client and to the Broker Society in UK, we have handled the most complex claim in UK since the Second World War. Very good. And that is giving credibility for brokers to recommend Protector to chief executives and CFOs of the larger companies in UK, which is to our benefit actually to that. So I think that we have more Protector in Manchester than in Oslo today, and our growth path is very long, and we have had a good start so far.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. Maybe on the sort of closing segment, I was curious and talking about the future and your vision and so on. I know you mentioned your intention to retire. I think it is later this year, yet it's not quite obvious you're still extremely active, to put it lightly. I was curious how you groomed your potential successors. I know the successor hasn't been announced yet, but how you groomed the group that could succeed you, and what makes you so confident that they'll continue to be the challenger that you've been all these years.
I think that we put the successor kind of situation on the agenda 3 years ago, something like that, at least 3 years ago. And my ambition have been to make sure that there are 3 people available that could replace me in due time. We don't at the moment. We have 2 actually. So there are kind of only 2 candidates who are capable of taking that position. Obviously, it's a board decision; it's not my decision. But my view is that there are 2, and I know that the board have the same opinion, and that they have approached the 2 in order to kind of check out which one that should be picked. Will be done during the next few months. In that area, and we have prepared for years. And I think that we are, when preparing for it, it's kind of that's not really an issue between me, the board, and the 1 or 2. It's an issue for the management team, because no person is equal, and it's not really about making a copy of me, because those 2 have qualities better than me in some areas, not equally good in some other areas. So the question is whether we are capable of building a management team growing stronger when I leave. And I think we are capable of doing that. And we have a very open process in the management team on how to make that transfer to happen properly with a large number of activities, not only to educate the 1 or the 2, but to educate the group. To fill in the shoes of Sverre, who obviously have played an important role since I've been there, the 17 years of the history of the company, and started the company together with the present chairman. So it has been long planned. It's not about that person or the 2. It's about management group development, and it's about who will fill in for their shoes when you left other people up here. And how will the relationship be between the new management team and the new board, or not necessarily the new board, but the board in future? Because for the first time in history, the kind of links between the historical links between the chief executive and the chairman disappears, and it will be replaced by something else. But that's. So it's not only about building a good management team, it's also about building the future board of Protector properly in that area. And I think that board management and shareholders are capable of doing that transfer process properly.
Assuming, I guess you were running and you weren't retiring, but assuming you were continuing to run Protector, I was curious what you think the business would look like in maybe a decade or so. I know you mentioned obviously going continuous growth in the UK and entering other parts of Europe, but maybe you could just give us a summary of how you see the business in 10 years if you were to continue running it.
10 years from now, we are 2 or 3 times the size of today, hopefully closer to 3, not 2. UK is by far the biggest country and is getting closer to twice the size of the Nordic market accumulated. Netherlands is up and running and is competing with Sweden to be the number 2 company when it comes to size. We have decided to go into another market outside UK and the Netherlands. Could be English-speaking other places in the world or other European countries. It's too early to say. I think the cost ratio of the company, the railway cost ratio, exclusive of commission, that's not important. It's slightly lower than today, not a lot, but the distance between Protector and competitors will be equally big as today. We are cost leader in the world. We will be that 10 years from now. We will have a lower cost ratio 10 years from now compared with today. It's possible to improve, and we will keep the distance to the other ones. We are fighting as hard as we can in order to deliver high quality towards brokers and clients all the time. We will have quality setbacks in some market segments in some years, because it's not easy to live the DNA of the company in every corner of the company, every day, every month, every quarter, every year. So there will be setbacks, but when we meet setbacks, we will have a management culture and a company culture strong enough to win back lost territory when it comes to quality. So I think that we will be cost leader in the world, basically quality leader all places, but with some setbacks now and then. People in Protector enjoy life and have fun.
Yeah, well, it won't be a straight line, I guess, to 3 times, but hopefully it's as smooth as possible. I guess before a few last questions here, what would you say has been your proudest moment so far at Protector over the last 16 or so years that you've been at the business?
Wow. If I go back, I would say I dared to take on board change of ownership business, July the 1st, 2004, bet the company on that decision, and seen back today, that was a very, very important decision. And I'm proud that I, together with those people, managed that segment with high quality and to a profit. So I guess that it was the starting point of the company. If you missed on that one, auto market disappeared, bankrupt, and or whatever in that era. So I think that's possibly. I think that our actions in the financial crisis 2008 and the COVID-19 crisis 2020 is kind of proud moments in our history, because we benefited from both of them a lot financially. So I think that's kind of pretty high on the list, those two. I think that kind of the turnaround we have done in Norway the last 2 years, losing out on culture and on losing money and not acting like real Protector citizens. It was kind of a disappointment, but to come back again with a strong Norwegian entity today is kind of a proud moment. So those are kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 business examples that you could call proud moments. But the final one, the most important one, is we created the DNA of the company. And we have created a strong internal culture. It's a never-ending story. It was my ambition when I was appointed chief executive 15 years ago to establish a performance-based culture, the best in the world in the insurance industry. I either win, I do that, or I leave. That's my single ambition. That's the handball player, Sverre, that is the handball coach on an international level, who would like to create the best team in the world. That's what I'm most proud of today.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing all that. On the athletic side, just to close it up, I know aside from Protector, you've been a big marathon runner, 24-hour cross-country ski trips, along with all kinds of other activities, including handball that you mentioned, and also coaching sports. And I was just curious why athletics has been so important in your life, and how sports and maybe including coaching has boosted your business career, maybe how they've helped each other at the same time.
I think that during the kind of dialogue we have had today, I've given some kind of examples that my sports background has been at least important to me, but also kind of important to Protector. If you have played against the best players in the world, and if you have beat them, you know we can do it in the business world as well. So the pure idea that you can take them down is could be frightening. It's not for me. This evening, Norway is playing France in the World Championship in handball. Okay, opening match for Norway tonight in Egypt. And I have played France in a World Championship qualification match many years ago. And we beat France at that time. Obviously, that was before France was getting so good as they are today in that era. But I think that sports background has been important to me and to Protector. There are transferable kind of elements from building a high-performance sports team to building a high-performance team in the business. But you have to understand the differences, and that this is something else. But I think to me it has been very, very important, and I think to Protector as well. You don't have to have any background from the sports in order to perform on a high level in Protector, not at all. Some of our very best people are not at all athletes, but they have the same thinking methodology and attitude that we can do whatever it is if we believe in it, and if we have disciplined people with disciplined thoughts that deliver disciplined actions. Collins again, we can do it. It is important. I love it, and I'm stupid enough to take on challenges from any of you out there on the sports side, like doing 220 kilometers cross country, which was a challenge from a broker in a party with 150 people present. When I was challenged, so everybody heard it, I couldn't say no, could I? So I had to say, yes, of course, I take the challenge. We are the challenger. So I meet you in Mars. This was in August. And then we go that cross-country race up north in Sweden together. I went there. He did not.
Well, I guess it's been the same with Protector. So, Sverre, this has been, we had high expectations for this conversation, and this has blown them away. So I really want to thank you so much for taking all the time to chat with us. This has been really terrific, and greatly appreciated from our side.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you. Nice being here.
This is presented by Van Chap Capital, LLC for informational purposes only. The future-looking statements and opinions expressed herein do not necessarily represent Van Chap's views and opinions, and may over time be proven inaccurate. Van Chap may or may not manage securities positions of the issuers discussed in this presentation. Nothing herein constitutes an offer to sell or a solicitation for an offer to buy any security. Van Chap does not guarantee the accuracy of the information provided herein, and this presentation should not be the basis of any investment decision.